spell both your first and your last name for the record?
Aaron Sweeney, AARON SWEENEY.
And Mr. Sweeney, what city do you currently reside in?
Manchester, New Hampshire.
Okay. How long have you been living here?
Since second grade, so a long time.
Long time. Okay. And are you currently working?
Yes.
And where do you work?
BJ's, right here in Manchester.
And what shift do you work for BJ's?
Third shift.
Okay, so let me ask you, it's about 9:55. How long have you been up?
I actually called out last night
Okay.
to make sure I got sleep.
That's why I just want to make sure that you did get a good night's sleep.
Yeah.
Okay. If for any reason you need me to restate your question, or any lawyer to restate a question, just let us know, and we'll be glad to do it, okay?
Okay.
All right. With regards to your work for BJ's, how long have you been working for them?
Almost a year.
Year. And prior to that, back in 2019, what sort of job did you have back then?
I believe that's when I was towing.
Okay. And were you towing for a company called Auto City Towing?
Yes.
All right. I'd like to ask you about a particular tow back on December 7th of 2019 at the intersection of the Webster and Elm Street around 12:52 in the afternoon. Do you remember that tow?
A little bit, not fully.
Okay. Well, let me ask you, when you go ahead and you tow a car, can you kind of explain to the jury what sort of procedures that you go through when you're making a tow?
Our office just calls one of the drivers, and we're handed a piece of paper saying where we're going and what it's for, and then we just proceed to the location.
What about when it's a vehicle that has broken down? Is there a way that Manchester Police Department might dispatch you out for a tow?
Well, yeah, they call our tow company, and then our guy at the front desk dispatches us out, unless the individual themselves call for a tow.
Do you end up making contact with the police department before you go to do a tow?
No.
Just go straight from the...
It goes straight to our front desk, and then we're handed a piece of paper, and then we go right to the scene.
When you get to a scene for a tow, what are some of the very first things that you do, just generally?
Just contact whatever vehicle's involved and find out what's going on and where it's going.
And from there, when you do have to use a tow, what kind of tow truck are we talking about?
Flatbed. So
Flatbed?
The big ones, yeah.
And could you go ahead and please explain to the jury what's the process you have to go through to put a car onto a flatbed as compared to, say, putting on a car where you're just kind of putting two wheels up and the back two wheels are rolling?
We just get in a good spot, we hook it up, and then we pull it up. That's it, really.
And what about when you have to do documentation of this tow? How do you document the tow that you're doing?
We have a separate tow slip, like the drivers use, and we just write like general information on it.
Mr. Sweeney, I'd like to go ahead and show you State's Exhibit 3B and 3C, if I may. Just a moment, please. I'd like to go ahead and show you what's been marked State's Exhibit 3B for identification purposes only. And I'd also like to show you what is page 6 of what's been marked State's Exhibit 3C for identification purposes only. And just have you take a look at those two documents for a moment, please.
Okay.
Okay, do you recognize them?
Yes.
Okay. And let's go ahead and start with State's Exhibit, page 6 of State's Exhibit 3C. How do you recognize that?
This is the tow slip that the drivers fill out.
Okay. So if you did a tow, is that the slip that you would fill out?
Yep.
And what about State's Exhibit 3B for identification purposes? What's that?
This is what is typed out by the gentleman at the front desk
Front desk
of Auto City.
of Auto City.
Yep.
Okay. So that's not something that you yourself fill out.
No.
Okay. With regards to page 6 of State's Exhibit 3C, on that particular one, who fills out that information?
I do.
Okay. And when do you fill that out?
We fill out just very little bit before the tow. Once we get to the tow, we can fill out more, or if we have to, we fill it out once we get back to the lot.
And by the time that you are done with that tow, when you drop the car back off at the lot, at that point, you have to have the rest of that filled out?
Yep, so the rest of this is filled out, and then we give it back to the gentleman who types out the other one.
And with regards to, other than the fact that if you look at State's Exhibit 3C, page 6, other than the fact that it's obviously not on the original paper, it's been photocopied, do you notice any other sort of changes or alterations from when you would have filled that out?
No.
Do you recognize your initials down there?
Yes.
Okay. And did you fill this form out?
Yes.
At this point in time, Your Honor, if I'm going to take these back from you for just a moment, sir, the State is going to move page 6 of State's Exhibit 3C. We'd move for the identification be stricken from page 6 and to make it correct. And I apologize, Mr. Sweeney. I just want to show you that page 6 from State's Exhibit 3A, and then I'm going to show you, 3C, I'm also going to show you State's Exhibit 3A for identification. Are those the same tow slips?
Yes.
And again, other than the fact that this one's a little bit easier to read and on it with a red sticker, any other sort of changes or alterations between those two?
No.
Thank you very much. At this point, Your Honor, State moves for strike ID from State's Exhibit 3A.
No objection. All right, the ID is stricken on 3A. It is entered as a full exhibit.
Mr. Sweeney, what I'd like to do is to go ahead and give this to you to have right there, and permission to publish, Your Honor.
Any objection?
No objection.
Yes, you may.
And Mr. Sweeney, I'm going to go ahead and have you be able to look at that photocopy up close. But I'm also going to have it projected on the screen behind you. I'd like to ask you a couple different questions about the different sections of this form
Okay.
and the information you filled out. So, Mr. Sweeney, if you would just turn around just for the briefest of moments, and is that a copy of State's Exhibit 3A that you have in front of you?
Yes.
Fair to say it's kind of hard to read at that size, isn't it? Is it easier on the paper?
Yeah, I can read it.
Okay. Well, I'd like to go ahead and kind of go through a little bit of the information that you filled out on this form, and you could tell us a little bit more about the tow. First of all, where did you go to make this tow?
Corner of Webster and Elm.
On the corner of Webster and Elm?
Yeah.
Okay. And when you ended up towing the car initially, did you bring it straight back to the lot, or did you bring it somewhere else first?
I brought it over to the gas station that was on that same corner.
Would that be Budget Gas right on the corner?
Yes.
Okay. Why did you bring it there before bringing it back to the lot?
So they can get some things out of their car.
Do you always do that?
Only if it's safe enough, or if there is a safe enough area to do it, I will. If not, I just direct them to come back to the shop.
Okay. When you were there, where did you park in the gas station parking lot?
Just close to Elm Street, like out of the way of the pumps.
All right. And at that point, did you allow some people to get some stuff out?
Yes.
Okay. Who got material out of the car?
I just only remember two gentlemen.
Two gentlemen?
Yeah.
Okay. Excuse me. And once you've towed a car for somebody to get things out of it, what do you have to do? Do they just kind of climb up the side of the truck, or?
No. So what I did was I extended the bed back out and I tilted it down so they can go up the ramp.
Okay. And then did you see the two people do that? Get
Yes.
things out of the car? Where did they put those things?
In another car.
Do you remember what that other car looked like?
No.
And the two men that you saw do this, do you remember what they looked like?
No.
What kinds of things did you see get taken out of the car? Do you recall?
I don't remember. Typically, when people clean out their car, like especially on the side of the road, I just stay by my truck, give them space.
Okay.
I periodically look over to see if they're done.
And once they were finished, where did you bring this car?
Back to our lot
Right.
at Auto City.
So let me ask you, with regards to the car itself, what kind of car was it that you towed?
A Sebring, as the slip says.
Okay. And let me ask again, you filled out the slip on the day of, is that
Yep.
correct? So fair to say that the information was fresh in your mind while you were there doing this?
Yes.
All right. And for the different areas that you might not know right off the top of your head, somebody's phone number, somebody's home address, how do you get that information?
If the person who's driving the vehicle is there, I just ask them.
Okay. When you fill the slip out, where does it go once you get done with it?
It goes to the gentleman at the front desk, and then he does whatever he has to do with it.
And let me ask, is that, you earlier looked at State's Exhibit 3B, is that you said that was a type-up version?
Yeah.
Is that where this information will go?
Yes.
What is some of the information in general? I'll ask you about specifics in a minute, but in general, what are some of the information that you record?
Just the VIN number, the make, the model.
Okay. VIN number, so is that a vehicle identification number?
Yes.
Okay. Do you also record things like mileage?
Nope.
Okay. Do you record a reason to make this tow?
Yes.
And what about your own mileage and going to make a tow? Is that important to record?
Yeah, we've always been told like the mileage from the start of the tow until we get back to our lot.
So what I'd like to do now is go through the different sections of the tow slip with you on State's Exhibit 3A and have you explain what we're looking at and the information that you filled in that day. All right?
Okay.
Okay. I'd like to go ahead and start focusing on the very top section there. Could you go ahead and just tell us what's the time that you made this tow?
12:52.
Okay. Morning or afternoon?
Afternoon.
Okay. And who was it that had requested the tow?
Manchester P.D.
Is that typical?
Yeah, it's normal.
All right. What was the reason that you were towing the car?
Disabled vehicle.
And the intersection itself, could you say where that was?
Webster and Elm Street.
Pardon me. Where did you bring the car to?
Out of the city.
Where's their tow lot?
It's on Commercial Street. It's right in the same building
Okay.
as our office.
Same building as your office?
Yeah.
Okay. If you could go through as well the information of the owner of the car, the driver, who do you get that from?
The driver, if they're there.
And what information did you write down in this report?
Adam Montgomery.
What address did he give you?
77 Guilford Street.
And this information would have come from him?
Yes.
All right. Next area I'd like to ask you about is a phone number. Did you get any phone number to contact him on?
No.
Did you ask for one, or would you have asked for one?
We usually ask for one, and if they don't give us it, then we don't expect them to come back
Don't expect them to come back. What does that mean?
for the car.
Okay. At that point, it's believed that the car is going to be abandoned? Is that the...
That's what we assume.
Okay. All right. Let me ask you about some of the other information. How do you, the information that you write down about the car itself? I know you said the VIN number. Can we see that on the tow form?
Yes.
Okay. And what about the year of the car or the make of the car?
That is on there as well.
Okay. And could you again just give us the year, the make, and the model of car?
2010 Chrysler Sebring, silver.
Okay. Was there a license plate on this car?
Yes.
And what license plate was there?
4368206.
Was that a New Hampshire plate?
Yes.
All right. And the color of the car, what was the color?
Silver.
All right. I see that there was something else that was initially written and then crossed out.
Yep, blue.
Okay. Who would have done that cross out?
Me.
All right. Looking at some of the other information on this, I believe you just read the license plate for us. Is the VIN number on there as well?
Yes.
All right. And could you go ahead and read the VIN number for us, please?
1C, 3C, C, 5F, B1, AN, 137502.
Thank you. I'd like to talk about the mileage that you write down. Is that your mileage?
It says service, right where it says mileage and service time?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So that's not the car's mileage?
No.
All right. And the service times, what are the two times that you put down?
12:52 is when I left, and 1:39 is when I got back.
Okay. And when you say left, left where?
Left a lot.
Left the lot. Oh, left the lot to go make the tow.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And then, separate from that section, I'd like to ask about the reasons. What were the reasons that you checked off for why you were towing the car?
It was disabled and the type of truck that we have.
Excuse me. One of the last sections I'd like to ask about this particular slip is in your remarks section. You wrote two things. Could you please read those for us?
No registration and no phone.
Okay. And when you say no registration, would you have asked for a registration?
Yep.
Okay. And is that a normal part of your practice when you make a tow?
Yes, it's just to get the most accurate information on the vehicle itself.
Okay. And about the phone number, same thing?
Same thing.
Finally, you're the tow driver on this car, correct?
Yes.
All right. And did you go ahead and write down your initials on that?
Yep.
Okay. And what were your initials?
AS.
If you could just go ahead and look at the screen behind you for a moment, can you just show us, just point generally where your initials are?
Right there it says tow driver.
Okay, thank you. Just a moment, please, Your Honor. Mr. Sweeney, I know that you stated that when you made this tow, there were two male individuals that helped get things out of the car. Let me ask you, when you were making this tow, did you see any children at all?
No.
None whatsoever?
Nope.
All right. Thank you. I don't have any further questions for you, Mr. Sweeney. I believe defense counsel may have a few.
I do, Mr. Sweeney. My name's Caroline Smith. How are you?
Doing pretty good.
So the car was about 20 years old?
Yeah.
Okay. And when you respond to that location, is Manchester P.D. still there?
Typically, yeah.
Okay. Because once a car is disabled, especially in a busy intersection, they want to make sure people are moving around pretty safe, right?
Yep.
And your flatbed actually has to go a little bit into the intersection to put the car on the flatbed, right?
Yeah, depending on the angle of the car.
Okay. And if a car is parked straight as if going straight through a traffic light, that's the kind of thing that you would get straight in front of it to put it on the flatbed?
Yep.
Okay. And was the car unlocked?
I think so. I don't remember.
Okay. Do you go in to, like, make sure the brakes aren't on or anything like that before you tow?
Nope.
Okay. With a flatbed, you can just lift it up?
We pull it up with a tow cable.
Okay. And you don't check to make sure the parking brake's off?
Nope.
Okay. Fair to say that you probably were there within 20 minutes of when that car broke down?
Yeah.
Okay. And you drove over to, so the two guys that came up to get stuff out of the car, was the car already on the flatbed at that point?
Yeah.
And they came over and asked you if they could get some stuff out?
Yeah.
And you said, well, I got to get out of here. I'll pull over to the budget.
Yeah.
And then you stand aside and they go through the car and get stuff?
Yep.
Might be going through the front of the car?
They go wherever they can get access to.
Okay. And it was not locked, right?
No.
Did anybody give you the keys to the car?
Either they were in the ignition or they were handed to me, but I honestly don't remember.
You did have the keys, though?
Yeah.
Okay. And did you give them back for when they were going through the car, or did they give you the keys after they went through the car?
I don't remember.
Okay. Thank you.
Just briefly, Your Honor, Mr. Sweeney, you were asked a moment ago in regards to how long the car had been there, for maybe about 20 minutes. Do you know how long the car had been there in terms, when you say that 20 minutes, where does that number come from?
Yeah, just by the time we get the call and I get to the scene.
Do you know what time Manchester would have found that car, or then turned around in the time between that and sending the note over to you guys to do the tow?
I have no idea. Basically, once the police get to that particular scene, they just call us, or they call somebody.
So you know the time when you got dispatched?
Yeah.
But not necessarily what happened?
Yep.
Thank you. No further questions.
Any follow-up?
When a car is broken down at a busy intersection, you try and get out there pretty quick, right?
Yeah.
Because that's a dangerous situation, right?
Yeah.
And so, for a dangerous situation, things happen pretty quick.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Nothing further, Your Honor. We'd ask the witness to be excused, please.
You may step down. Any objection to his being excused?
May I have him on call?
Yes. So you'll advise the witness. Counsel approach.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Joseph Tucker, Joseph, and Tucker.
Okay. And Mr. Tucker, are you currently employed?
I am, yes, sir.
Okay. And where do you work?
The Catholic Medical Center.
How long have you been working for them?
I just started back up in January.
Okay. And what do you do for them?
I'm the cybersecurity manager.
And prior to working for Catholic Medical Center as the cybersecurity manager, where did you work?
Solution Health.
Solution Help?
Health.
Health,
Yes,
okay.
sir.
And what was the time that you were working for them?
April 2022 until January of 2023.
And prior to that, and I will ask you to just, if you can even move a little bit closer
Yes,
to the
sir.
microphone, I'll have you speak up just a little bit so I can hear you. Thank you. With regards to working for Secure Health, before that, where did you work?
Manchester Police Department, sir.
And again, I'm going to have you just kind of keep your voice up a little bit if you can.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry. How long did you work for the Manchester Police Department?
Since 2015, so 8 years-ish.
Roughly that long?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And were you working there in January of 2022?
Yes.
All right. I'd like to ask you a couple different questions about when you were a Manchester police officer. First of all, were you a full-time certified officer?
I was, yes, sir.
Okay. And did you graduate from the New Hampshire State Police Training Academy?
I did, yes, sir.
When was that?
2012?
Around 2012?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you remember your academy class number?
163.
163. All right. And let me ask you, with regards to your work with the Manchester Police Department, were there any other sort of law enforcement jobs that you had prior to that?
I worked for the Laconia Police Department before I went to Manchester,
How long in Laconia?
2012 to 2015.
2012 to 2015, and then Manchester from 2015 to 2022?
Yes, sir. I did. I retired full time from Manchester PD, and then I did about a year as a reserve officer working in like cybercrime.
Okay.
So I don't know if you include that.
Okay. Yep, that's what I'm asking about, is all your experience there. With regards to your different duties in the Manchester Police Department, could you explain to us some of the different units that you worked at, different assignments that you had prior to you working in the areas of being a detective?
Yes, sir. I worked in patrol. I worked midnights for all 3 shifts, midnights, 4 to 12 day shift. I had a canine Saber. We were primarily on 4 to 12. I helped create the drone unit, so I was part of the drone unit, and then went up to detectives at that point, sir.
And then went to detectives after that?
Yes, sir.
As a detective, what were some of your responsibilities and duties?
I was fortunate enough, I was a cross between general detectives and then also the cybercrime unit. So I assisted in both like digital cases, ICAC tips, cybercrime tips, and then I also did general caseload for detectives.
General caseload, what does that mean?
Anything from, financial crimes, fraud, homicides, violent crimes. Sure.
And how long did you do that?
I believe I went up in detectives in 2021.
2021?
Yes, sir.
Separate from that, in detectives, did you have any work in doing processing, specifically looking at physical items to see if there's any evidence on them?
Yes, sir.
And in January of 2022, were you asked to assist other officers in doing a search of a 2010 Chrysler Sebring with New Hampshire registration 4368206?
Yes, sir.
Where was that search done?
At the Manchester Police Department, and we have a vehicle processing bay, which is right outside of where the Sally Port is.
I imagine we might hear some testimony later on about this bay, so could you go ahead and describe it for the jury, please?
Sure. The bay itself, you can only access it from the secured back lot where we park most of the police vehicles. There is a 2-garage Sally Port. The left side used to have like tactical vehicles, and then the right side is where we would drop prisoners off or transport prisoners. Just to the right of that is a single bay garage door that opens up, and then there's also a side door to access it. Both are secure. You need your ID has to get in, and then inside of that bay, it could probably fit a full-size pickup if you took the pickup and went sideways. But
So it's a good-sized garage.
yeah, and then we had tools in there for disassembling vehicles, and then we had evidence supplies down there. So if it was inclement weather or it was a long search, you could utilize the bay.
Okay. Let me ask you, what was your role during this search of this 2010 Chrysler Sebring with the New Hampshire registration 4368206?
I was Detective O'Leary. He's now Sergeant O'Leary. He was we joked around and called him the incident commander, but he was the guy that was in charge of all the crime scene processing. So I was more or less there to assist him.
And what were some of the things that you did to assist him, just generally?
Generally, collecting of evidence items, the log, if there was any pictures. We were blue starring, which is a process to try to obtain any blood samples from the vehicle. So it sounds silly, but you have to turn the lights off for that. So I was the light guy, things like that.
The light guy, so literally
Light guy.
turn the lights off,
Yes,
turn the lights on?
Yeah, and then you'd have to set the camera for 30 seconds, 60 seconds exposure to take the photo. So I would have a flashlight just so we could still navigate a little bit without the direct light.
So were you the one administering the blue star, or that was somebody else?
That was Detective O'Leary.
All right. Let me ask you, what roles do initials play at the Manchester Police Department when you're labeling evidence?
Generally speaking, when I initialed something, it was an item that I collected.
Okay. And what were your initials?
JMT.
So if you collected an item today, if you were going to collect this tissue box, and this was going to be an item of evidence that you went ahead and entered in at the Manchester Police Department, how would you have labeled this? If this is your first item of the day.
Sure. The box itself would have been JMT1, and then any items inside the box, like tissues, would be JMT1-A-B, and subsequently.
Okay. I could see that. So something like, let's say,
a backpack.
like a backpack.
JMT1, and then if you have an item in the backpack, you want a 1A, signifying that item A came from 1.
When you were assisting in doing the search of this car, were there other officers there to help you as well? Besides
Yes,
just
but
yourself and Sergeant O'Leary?
Initially, there was a lot of in and out, a lot of people checking in.
All right. And with regards to the items of physical items of potential evidence that you collected, do you remember how many that you directly took and initialed in the way that you just described for us?
8.
8.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So that would have been, what, JMT 1 through JMT 8?
Yes, sir.
All right. Was one of those JMT 7 a pink toothbrush?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Tucker, I'd like to go ahead and hand you a couple of photographs, have you look through all of them, and then afterwards I'm probably going to have a couple of questions for you.
Yes, sir.
First, I'd like to go ahead and show you what's been marked States Exhibits 4 through 10. And then separate from that, I'd like to go ahead and show you what's been marked States Exhibits 104 through 106. At this point, all of these are for identification only. And take your time. I know there's a lot. What's that, Mr. Tucker?
Yes, sir.
Generally, with regards to the photographs, do you recognize those photographs?
Yes, sir.
What are they photographs of?
This, if I may, this photograph.
Hold on just a second.
Yes, sir.
Let me go ahead and if I can assist Your Honor. With regards to, let's go ahead and start with States Exhibit 10. What's that a photo of?
This is the photo.
We're just going to keep it down low. We haven't published it
Okay,
yet, so
sorry.
I can't show the jury. Let me ask you this. I'll just go one at a
Sure.
time. For States Exhibit 10, do you recognize this? I'm sorry. Apologize. Getting the ID upside down. States Exhibit 5. Do you recognize that photograph?
Yes, sir.
All right. What is that photograph of?
It's the evidence processing bay that I was describing earlier with the silver Chrysler Sebring in there.
The one that you searched?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And other than the fact that it has a red sticker on it, does that picture show the car as it appeared to you at different times during your search of the car?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm going to put that one to the side for right now. Separate from that, I'd like to go ahead and ask you about States Exhibit 4 on this particular one. Do you recognize that photograph?
No.
Okay. With regards to that particular vehicle, do you recognize the vehicle at all?
It looks like the same vehicle, but without seeing the back, it's hard to say. But it,
Well, let me ask you, I'm going to direct your attention to the top right-hand side of the windshield in that particular vehicle, and then have you make a comparison with
I'm
regards
sorry, Your Honor, I can't hear Attorney Ugati.
Okay.
Sure, I apologize. Officer Tucker, what I'd like to do is have you go ahead and look, if you would please, at the top left-hand side of the windshield on States Exhibit 4 in comparison to 10, and look at the two windshields as a comparison between the two.
yes, sir. It's got the same numbers.
Okay.
written on it.
And with regards to, also, I'm going to have you look at the lower left part of that windshield underneath the hood on States Exhibit 4 and compare it to the lower left part of the windshield on States Exhibit 10.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And other than do those particular numbers match?
Yes, sir.
If you could please ask you about the next exhibit. See, yep. Going to this exhibit, States Exhibit 6. Do you recognize that photo?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What do you recognize it to be?
It's the same vehicle, but it's the driver's side, front and rear of the vehicle, but the doors have been removed.
Okay. The doors have been removed?
Yes, sir.
And let me ask you, when you were searching this car initially, was there anything that was inside the car?
Yeah, like all the car parts and stuff, sir.
All the car parts?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And let me have you, and are those reflected in that photograph?
Yes, sir.
All right, if you could go to the next photo then. I'm referring to States Exhibit, excuse me, is it, I read it upside down, I
7.
apologize. States Exhibit 7? For States Exhibit 7, do you recognize that photo?
Yes, sir.
What is it a photo of?
The front of the vehicle, the driver's seat, passenger seat, but looking in on the driver's seat.
So looking in the driver's seat, so where the steering wheel is?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And does that photo show the car as you saw it when you were searching the car?
Yes, sir.
All right. If you could go to the next exhibit, please. It should be States Exhibit 8.
Yes, sir.
What's that a photograph of?
Same context, except from the passenger or from the driver's front, it's the driver's rear.
All right, so so right behind the driver's seat.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And does that photograph also accurately reflect the vehicle as you saw it the day that you helped out with the search?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And the next photograph. And that particular one states Exhibit 9, I believe?
Yes, sir.
All right, what's that a photograph of?
It's the trunk of the vehicle, sir.
The trunk of the vehicle?
Yes, sir.
If you could please, I'd like to direct your attention from 9 and also direct it to States Exhibit 103, 4. Have you look at those two. Do you recognize, let's start with States Exhibit 103. Do you recognize that photo?
Yes, sir.
What's that a photo of?
It's the trunk of the vehicle, but with more items in it.
Okay. Is that how the vehicle initially appeared, or
Yeah.
did you fill it with items, or did you empty it from items?
No, we emptied it, sir.
Okay. And does it also show the registration for the car there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. States Exhibit, the next one there, should be 104?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And what is that a photo of?
Just another close-up of the trunk area with all the items in it.
Okay. What kind of items are they?
It's like steering components. Looks like the front CV shaft and maybe a cross member.
Okay. A cross member?
Yeah, like the front frame, like the cross member.
Oh, okay. Okay. Working our way around the car, I'd ask you to look at States Exhibit 105 and see if you can tell us a little bit about that particular photo. What's that a photo of?
The right rear, the passenger side rear, with the door open, looking in.
Did it also have car parts in it, that side of the car?
Yes, sir.
Can you see that in the photograph?
Yes, sir.
And is that accurate from when you saw it, when you helped with the search?
Yes, sir.
And if you could go to the next smaller exhibit there, yes. That's
106.
106. What's that a photograph of?
The passenger front seat.
So now we've worked our way around the car to the passenger front seat.
Yes, sir. Right front.
And does that appear as you saw it when you helped do the search?
Yes, sir.
What were some of the items that were in that seat?
More car parts, broken glass, snow, just trash.
And does that accurately reflect how it appeared when you did the search?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. One last question for you, separate from these. The last one I believe that we haven't talked about with regards is States Exhibit 10. Could you tell us what that's a photograph of?
Pink toothbrush?
Okay, and do you recognize that toothbrush?
Yes, sir.
Okay, how do you recognize it?
It was in the back of the Sebring, sir.
Okay, in the back of this car?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And is that a toothbrush that you seized and put into evidence?
Yes.
Okay, and you remember what was the initials that you gave for that one?
JMT7.
JMT7.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. With regards to the photograph, does it look, other than the fact that it has a red label on it and somebody on that photograph has put their initials, other than that, any sort of changes or alterations to it from how you remember it looking when you collected it?
No, sir.
At this time, Your Honor, the state, if I could take these back, please, Mr. Tucker. The state would move to go ahead and strike the identification, specifically from the state's exhibits 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, as well as from state's exhibits 104, 105, 106, and to 103, 104, 105, 106.
Any objection?
No objection to the 100s, and no objection to 4 through 9. I thought I heard something about 11.
Specifically 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10.
I think 10 may already be, but we would have no objection.
Mr. Tucker, I had gone through a series of photographs with you just before we took our mid-morning break. Do you see that same stack of photographs in front of you now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Again, what I'm going to do is I'd like to be able to ask you questions about these photos, and I'll go in roughly that order, and be able to, you can either look at the photographs in front of you or feel free to look at the screen behind you, whichever one's going to be easier. And I've got a series of questions for you about how you conducted the search and the appearance of the car. All right?
Yes, sir.
All right. I'd like to go ahead and start with State's Exhibit 103. And I wondered if you could go ahead and describe this photograph for us.
Yes, sir. This is the trunk of the Sebring with the car parts in it.
Okay. And you said the car parts in it. Could you just kind of generally point with your hands where those are again?
Yeah, this is all part of the car parts.
Okay. And do you know where those car parts came from?
I believe they came from the front of the vehicle, I believe that's like a CV shaft. Has to do with power to the wheels on the front of the vehicle, but I'm not a mechanic.
Okay. And with regards to the license plate, can we see the license plate on the car?
Yes, sir.
And could you read the license plate for us?
4368206.
Moving around to State's Exhibit 5, what are we looking at here?
That's the front of the vehicle, specifically the driver's side.
And is this also, again, how the car looked that day when you searched it?
Yes, sir.
And so I guess from that question, is this the bay that we were talking about, the evidence bay that you can do the search in?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I can't help but notice it doesn't have a wheel. Did it have any wheels?
No, I don't think it did, sir.
Okay.
But I wasn't there when they took it from the junkyard. This is the first time I saw it. Was I came into work and was instructed to go down and help Detective O'Leary.
All right.
Right, sir, I'm gonna need you to speak, maybe slide your chair over a little
Yes,
so
ma'am.
that you're speaking into the microphone.
Yes,
because
sorry.
This is recorded and we do need to get your voice. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Before, I also had you do to look on the windshield specifically of the car, and we talked a little bit about it. I'd like to switch now to State's Exhibit 4. This particular car, is this the car that the photo that I had you make a comparison of that windshield?
Yes, sir.
All right. And showing State's Exhibit 5 and 4 together, 4 being on the bottom and 5 being on the top, do you remember the letters and the numbers that I had you point to in the top right-hand corner of the windshield?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And do we have those both highlighted here on the screen?
Yes, sir.
And do you remember me asking the question about the numbers indicated on the lower left-hand side of the windshields?
Yes, sir.
And do we have those also highlighted here on the screen?
Yes, sir.
So, with regards to this car, we're looking at the same car here between these two photos, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. Working our way around the car, and I'd like to go ahead and kind of move in a counterclockwise fashion from looking at the hood. Moving now around to the driver's side, can you go ahead and point out for us, when you said that there were car parts in the car, show us where those car parts are, and do you recognize any of those parts?
Yes, sir. So the driver's seat, these are car parts, and then the back passenger seat had more car parts in them.
Okay.
And then obviously the floorboard.
And the floorboard as well?
Yes, sir.
Okay. With regards to those car parts, let's go ahead and kind of zoom in, if we would, to the passenger area, to the driver's seat. So zooming in to that same photograph here of State's Exhibit 6. Can you see those car parts a little bit better?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to go directly to one seat and then the other. So if we could start with the driver's seat, looking at State's Exhibit 7, can you point out where some of these parts are that you're talking about?
Sure. Yes, sir. This looks like the bezel, which would go up here where you're looking at your instruments.
Mm-hmm.
These look like some underbody parts, like that might be a suspension component, but again, I'm not 100%, but they're definitely car parts.
Okay. And moving to State's Exhibit 8, if we go into the back seat, right behind the driver's seat, what are we looking at here?
More car parts, sir.
Okay.
This looks like it might be usually an air filter box. I'm not 100%. And then this looks like it might be a fender well, like up in the inner fender.
Okay. And is it fair to say from seeing here, we don't see a driver's side rear tire as well?
No, sir.
Moving now kind of to the trunk area, if you could, I'd like to go back to State's Exhibit 103. You already identified this photo for us as being that particular trunk of the Chrysler Sebring with the car parts in it. I'd like to, if you could, describe for the jury as we look at specifically State's Exhibit 104, what was the condition of these parts that you were looking at?
Just like that, they look like old car parts. I mean, I didn't take the car parts out and see if they fit the car, but I assume that they belonged to the vehicle.
Was there generally, were there any kind of fluids that were coming from any of these parts that you noticed?
Not in the trunk, but there was a liner, so it's hard to say.
Okay.
I feel like the liner would have absorbed it.
What about in other areas of the car?
Yes.
There were?
Yeah, I believe so. Like the passenger seat, I think the right front had like wetness.
Okay.
So I really need you to
Yeah,
keep
yes,
your
ma'am.
voice up. It's a big room and everybody needs to hear you.
Yes, ma'am. Sorry.
Okay, thank you.
I believe the right front area had wetness.
Okay. Thank you for that. I'm going to zoom in. Did you help remove these parts from the vehicle to help do the search?
Yes, sir.
Where did they go?
I think we laid out a piece of big parchment paper, like brown, like the same material like a Hannaford's bag, like when you go to the grocery store and you get paper bags.
Yes.
Just a big roll of that. We laid it out, and they go on that roll.
Okay. Did you help or did you watch as the car parts got emptied from the trunk?
I helped, I believe, yeah.
Okay. And I'd like to show you now State's Exhibit 9 zooming in on this portion of State's Exhibit 104 in the back corner. Can you tell if there's any particular of a color that's in that photo?
Color, sir?
Yeah, any color that doesn't look like a car part. And feel free to use the screen or the photograph if you wish.
Are you referencing like the looks kind of light blue?
Look like blue to you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Once you emptied out the car, were you able to see what that light blue thing was as we look at State's Exhibit 9?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And what was it?
T-shirt.
A T-shirt?
Yes, sir.
Right. Just and with that trunk emptied, excuse me, apologize. With that trunk emptied, were you able to look farther to the back of the trunk?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And from there, what were the different items that you saw?
I think it was all clothing, and then the toothbrush. You can see a little bit of it right there.
Right where?
Right here, sir.
And that's inside that circle?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Were you able to see it? Let's say you can see it here from the photo, I take it, correct?
Yes, sir.
Right. Zooming in on State's Exhibit 9, can you show us again where it is that you see it?
Yes, sir. Right here.
Right there?
Yes, sir.
And showing again State's Exhibit 10. This is the toothbrush that you recovered from that trunk?
Yes, sir.
On that toothbrush, I believe you testified earlier on in direct that it was identified that you logged it in as JMT7. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to hand you what's been marked State's Exhibit 66 for identification purposes only. Yes, go ahead and look at the label and feel the bag. Do you recognize that particular packaging as well as the object inside?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and what is that packaging? How do you recognize the packaging?
It's the brown bag that I placed it into.
And does it have your initials on it, JMT7?
Yes, sir.
At this point, Your Honor, if I would borrow a pair of scissors, I'd like the witness to be able to open the bag. Mr. Tucker, since we are talking about a toothbrush, I wonder if you would be willing
Yes,
to
sir.
put on a pair of gloves for us and be able to open that bag. And then you said you're going to put it on a second glove. Can you please tell the jury why?
So most of the time when you're processing crime scenes, there's a lot of evidence, and you put on a fresh pair of gloves every time you collect the evidence. And if you don't have double gloves, your hands become very sweaty, and it becomes very difficult to put on a fresh pair of gloves. So it's just easier, especially if you're doing blood swabs and things of that nature. But that's how I was always taught, so that's how I do it. Yes, sir.
You can please go ahead and use those scissors to open up.
Do you have a preference on where?
I would say please If you would please go ahead and cut in an area where there isn't a label,
Okay.
maybe on the side. Just large enough for the eye. Let me ask you, you're not taking the item out of the bag, just looking into the bag. Do you recognize what's in there?
Yes, sir.
What do you recognize in the bag?
The toothbrush from the vehicle.
Just wanted to ask for the identification of the stricken ground for States Exhibit 66.
Without objection.
All right, the ID is stricken, and it is entered as a full exhibit.
Mr. Tucker, if you please go ahead and show us the toothbrush. And if I could ask the witness to please stand up. The witness stand in the row.
For the purpose of,
Just to be able to show both sides of the toothbrush. I don't know that the jurors in the back are going to be able to see both sides.
Yes, he may
They
do
can
that.
see the front, but they can't see the back from the photo.
that's fine.
Mr. Tucker, if you would sit down.
A lot of pressure right now. I could trip.
Yeah, do be careful. Step right over here. If you can, please, we can see the front of the toothbrush on States Exhibit 9, but I wondered if you would please go ahead and show the toothbrush, both show the front, and then also turn it around and show all the sides slowly so that all of the jurors can see. And if you could please turn it around to the back so that the jurors can see what the back of the toothbrush looks like. Thank you, Mr. Tucker. If you could please retake the stand. Thank you. And Mr. Tucker, let me hold the bag open. If you could go ahead and place that back in there. Hold on just a moment. And, that's That's the only item we were going to ask you to look at, so I will get a trash can.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Tucker, moving on around the car, out of the trunk now, I'd like to go over towards the passenger side, if we could. We'll start with the rear passenger side. Looking at States Exhibit 105 here, can you describe what we can see in this photograph?
Yes, sir. More car parts on the seat, and then some trash items, and it's like a water bottle on the passenger side floorboard.
And I see here that we've got a door on this side.
Yes, sir.
All right. And on the previous side, on the driver's side, were there any doors there?
No, sir.
Moving on from this particular one then to States 106, could you please describe what we're seeing here and what part of the car?
It's the right front, the passenger side front. Looks like the headlight is on the floorboard, and maybe a reservoir for like washer fluid,
Okay.
something of that nature, and then some snow.
And some snow. Can you point out where the snow is?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. And that headlight, the reservoir, the snow, all of those were there when you saw the car in that garage bay, correct?
Yes, sir.
None of those were placed there by officers to your knowledge.
Not to my knowledge.
Let me ask you, with regards to some of the other evidence that you looked at and collected on this particular item, this particular car, separate from the toothbrush, were there also a series of swabs that you took in the trunk?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And how many of those swabs did you take?
4.
4?
Yes, sir.
And how were those labeled? Your
J-
initials again?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And it was just 1, 2, 3, 4? Or?
Yes, sir. JMT 1, 2, 3, and 4.
4. Okay. those particular swabs, could you go ahead and describe for the jury how you collected swabs? You talked about it a moment ago when you showed us how instinctually you use 2 gloves. When you do these swabs in the trunk, how do you collect those?
So for swabs, when it comes to blood, if it's not wet, so if the blood's not wet or the material's not wet, urine, whatever it is, if it's dry, we have sterile water. We take it, we pour it into the cap. Each cotton swab contains 2 in the package, the container. So you glove up. Usually, I would write all the details on the box. There was a little cotton swab box. So I'd write, it's folded, you assemble it, so it's easier to write on it before. So you'd write JMT1, set it up, date, time, all the information, put on your gloves, do the water, get everything ready. And then at that time, because we were using Blue Star in the trunk, there was kind of like a limited amount of time because you have to have the lights off to see the area that you're going to collect. So you'd spray the Blue Star, it would illuminate, you could see that area, and then you had to turn the lights on and collect it. So I was there waiting, ready with the swab ready to go.
I see. So to make sure I understand this right, you're not necessarily administering the Blue Star, but you've got the swabs
Yes.
that you've opened up. Are each one of these swabs, the water that you put together, the boxes, are each one of those sterile before you open them to take a swab?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And is that also very important for you for taking a swab, to double glove and to make sure you're using sterile materials?
Yes, sir.
Those 4 swabs and the toothbrush, are you aware whether or not those were sent on to a laboratory for examination?
I believe the toothbrush was,
Okay.
but I wasn't aware at the time. I assumed everything that we were doing was going to end up at a lab.
If I can have just a moment, please, Your Honor. Mr. Tucker, I've got one last question I want to ask you. The trunk liner itself, with regards to the 4 swabs that were taken, did you also collect, I believe you said at the very beginning, there were 8 evidence items that you took. Could you please tell us what JMT 8 was? What was the last thing that you cut out?
I don't remember.
Okay. If you had a chance to look at a report written from the search that day, do you think that might refresh your recollection as to what the 8th item was?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Tucker, I'm going to go ahead and hand you a copy of what's been marked, just a bait stamp, page 111. I'm going to direct your attention down at the...
I'm going to need you to raise your voice so everybody can hear you, please.
I apologize. Mr. Tucker, I'm going to go ahead and hand you what's been marked Discovery page 111, and I'm going to direct your attention down to the bottom of the page. First of all, after having a chance to read through that document, I'm going to ask, is that a write-up of what the search was that you were a part of for these photographs and for your taking of evidence?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I'm going to have, my question for you is going to be, what was the 8th and last thing that you collected? I'm going to have you said you didn't remember. I'm going to let you go ahead and refresh your recollection. If it's refreshed, let me know. Just look up when you're done.
Yes, sir. It was part of... Oh,
John, take that back.
yes, sir.
All set.
Sorry.
That's all right. And do you recall now what JMT 8 was, that last thing that you collected?
Yes, sir.
What was it?
A piece of the trunk liner.
Piece of the trunk liner?
Yes, sir.
So, and how did you get or recover that piece of the truck liner?
We cut it.
You cut it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What did you use to cut it?
I don't remember.
All right. And then after it was cut, first of all, you have shown us what you do with gloves and try to present and collect things in a sterile manner. Would you have done that for trying to collect what JMT 8 was, the cutting of the trunk liner?
Yes, sir.
And would you have logged it into evidence the same way you did the other ones, JMT 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8?
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Tucker, I don't have any further questions for you. I believe defense counsel will have a few.
Yes, sir.
Good morning, Detective. I don't believe we've met, but I'm Jamie Brooks with Public Defender, and I represent Mr. Montgomery. I'm also going to ask you some questions about that search you conducted with then Detective, now Sergeant O'Leary. Do you
Yes, sir.
understand?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and this search was on January 1st. Your participation in the search was on January 1st, 2022.
Yes, sir.
And it was the Chrysler Sebring, right?
Yes, sir.
And it was already in the Manchester Police Department bay when you saw it.
Yes, sir.
The pictures that were shown showed what were like the guts or the parts of the vehicle inside, right?
Yes, sir.
But eventually, those items were all removed from the interior of the vehicle.
I think so. It wasn't by me.
You mentioned there being, I don't think you used the word butcher paper, but there was paper that O'Leary put down, correct?
I don't know if it was O'Leary, but there was paper down. Yes, sir.
Okay. And the purpose of the paper being down was to put the parts of the car that were in the interior on the ground.
Yes, sir.
Because not only were you looking for items such as toothbrushes, but you were also looking for latent bloodstains, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you mentioned Blue Star. Blue Star is a latent bloodstain reagent.
Yes. Yes.
It reacts with hemoglobin.
Yes.
It can detect the presence of blood that cannot be seen by the naked eye.
Correct.
It can detect blood that has been cleaned up.
Yes, sir.
It can detect minute amounts.
Yes, sir.
And Blue Star was applied to the entirety of the exterior of the vehicle.
That I don't know. I wasn't there for that.
You weren't there for that?
No, sir.
Were you there for but you were there for the collection of swabs, right?
For the trunk, sir.
Just for the trunk?
Yes, sir.
All the same, you were there for when the Blue Star was applied to the exterior of the vehicle.
I don't remember that. I remember the trunk.
So, okay. Are you aware of Blue Star being applied to the exterior of the vehicle?
Not that I can remember.
And what about the interior of the vehicle?
The trunk, yeah.
The state just had you look at a report,
Yes, sir.
correct? And that's from the state's discovery,
Yes, sir.
Bait stamp 111 through 114, state's discovery.
If you say so.
Do you still have that report up there, Detective?
No, sir.
If I may. Permission to approach?
Yes?
Thank you. Do you recognize this document, Detective?
I do, yes.
And you indicated you could not recall the extent of the use of Blue Star to the vehicle,
I remember the trunk, sir.
but you don't remember any other portions?
No.
Would it help you to look at that report?
Yes, but this isn't my report.
This is the same report that the state just provided you to refresh your recollection?
Right, but this report was written by Brian O'Leary. So he documented the items that I found.
Okay. Okay. Do you have any specific recollection of your participation on January 1st of 2022?
Yeah, I remember going down. I remember helping Brian Blue Star the trunk. I remember helping collect the samples. I remember collecting the items from the trunk. I don't remember doing much more than that for the vehicle.
So for you, you believe it was just the trunk?
Yes, sir. For the most part, yeah.
Well, while we're at it, let's go ahead and talk about the trunk then. So Blue Star emits a reaction to the hemoglobin, right, by chemiluminescence?
Right, it's like a neon green looking color, like neon green, neon blue.
Some people say blue,
Yeah,
light blue.
right.
And your role in this was to make sure that the lighting was correct?
Yes, sir.
So it doesn't have to be pitch black for Blue Star to work, right?
No, but you want darkness for the camera.
You want dim light.
Right.
And was part of your role to make sure that the camera was functioning?
Nope. Nope. Detective O'Leary set that camera up on the tripod and had all the settings. You had to use specific settings, like shutter length that it's open for, type of thing.
And you were just ready with the swabs.
Yes. And then like.
And what you were waiting for was to see a reaction, right?
Correct.
And it would manifest itself with a light blue color.
Right.
It's a light blue color that would last for roughly 30 to 60 seconds.
Yeah, it's not very long.
But that 30 to 60 second reaction would suggest the presence of blood.
Yes, sir.
Blood that the naked eye cannot see.
Correct.
Blood that could have been cleaned up.
Correct.
So when there was that reaction, you would take those swabs, right, and get samples
Right.
from that area that was illuminated.
Correct.
And you mentioned 2 swabs. One swab would be used to later provide to the State Forensic Laboratory.
Right.
The second swab you would use for a hemostick, right?
It depends. I think the second swab's in this case, I just used it for the next sample.
Okay. Let's talk about swabs you collected. JMT1, would that be something that you collected?
Yes.
And what was that? Do you recall?
No.
Would it help you to look at something to be able to recall that?
The report, yes.
Feel free to do so, and just look up when you're done.
Yes, sir.
So JMT1, what is that?
So you want me to describe what's in the report?
From your recollection, if you like, or I can just ask you questions about it at this point. It was a DNA swab that you took, right?
Right.
And it was a swab of an area that was positive for Blue Star, correct?
Right.
And it was by a piece of insulation.
I can't remember. I remember the trunk, and I remember we sprayed the Blue Star, lights went off. You see the areas that reacted, and then we took a photograph, and then we would look at the photograph after and compare, and then take the sample from that area.
So a swab was used to tame a sample, and was hemosticks also used on JMT1?
I don't recall that.
Fair to say, though, that the process, this isn't the first time that you've been involved in the Blue Star collection process.
It might be. There's one other time that I know of.
Okay.
That was over on Guilford Ave. I just don't remember if this happened before that.
But in terms of your recollection of the protocol or the proper procedure, if there were any reaction, positive reaction to the Blue Star, a sample would be collected, right?
Right.
So JMT1 reflected a swab from an area of the trunk that tested positive for hemoglobin. Let's talk about JMT2. Do you recall what that is?
From reading the report, it says in a trunk by a candy wrapper.
And this was a swab you took because the item tested positive, reacted positively to the Blue Star mist.
Right.
JMT4, that's also a swab that you took?
Yes, sir.
And this was also due to a reaction to the application of Blue Star in the trunk?
Yes, sir.
This was in a bumper crease area by the rubber gasket?
I don't remember.
You talked about this on direct, JMT8. Do you remember, again, what that was from?
I remember the carpet, the trunk liner. I don't remember what part tested positive.
Do you know if it was the top or the bottom?
I don't, sir.
But in any event, because that area tested positive, and it was probably something you couldn't really swab,
Right.
so because you couldn't swab it, you still wanted to make sure that you collected it,
Yes, sir.
and that's why you cut out a portion of it,
Right.
the portion that tested positive.
Yes, sir.
So again, your understanding of the procedure is that if something tests positive for Blue Star, it's documented, right, in the form of the camera that's taking pictures.
Yes, sir.
It's also documented by the collection of a sample from that area, right,
Yes, sir.
in the form of a swab.
Right. Yes, sir.
It's also documented in a police report,
Yes, sir.
a police report that oftentimes ends up in discovery, like this one, right?
Yes, sir.
Like the report that you're looking at from Detective O'Leary.
Yes, sir.
So, Detective, I'm just trying to figure out why you only remember the trunk. Is it because that was the only area where there was the positive reaction for Blue Star on the vehicle?
No, I think that's just the only area that I helped with.
And to the best of your recollection, you don't know how many days of processing the Sebring took?
No, sir.
You were just there for one day,
Yes, sir.
and that would be January 1st,
Right.
2022.
I was in and out a lot, sir, but the day in question, yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Anything further?
Briefly, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
Let me ask you, Mr. Jumper, you did not spray the Blue Star in this particular case, correct?
No, sir.
And you were asked about training and experience with Blue Star. How many times had you applied Blue Star in the past at different crime scenes to try to discover evidence?
I can't remember if Guilford Ave happened before. I sprayed some there. A lot of the reason why I think I was involved in this was to learn that process, to see Detective O'Leary do it and assist him with it.
So at the time that you're assisting with this process, how much did you know about Blue Star? You were asked a lot of questions about protocols and procedures and chemoluminescence. Did you know about all of that at the time that you were assisting?
I was given very, very simple instructions that it'll glow and that there is a potential that they could be blood.
Have you ever mixed up the reagents to use at a crime scene?
No.
Have you ever read the directions that are necessary before you mix up those reagents?
No.
With regards to Blue Star, what it's good for and not good for, are you aware, or do you know whether it can cause a false negative or a false positive response?
I was told it can react with rust.
And it can react with rust?
Yes, sir.
You still have the photos?
Yes, sir.
Just a quick question. I'll just take State's Exhibit 104. That's State's Exhibit 104 with the registration? Am I reading that correctly?
I think it's 103.
So, excuse me, 103. 103. Could you find 104, please? 104?
Yes, sir.
So you think that it might react with rust?
Yes, sir.
And the swabs that are taken, again, where do those swabs go?
I put them into the cardboard container, the swab container,
And what was your understanding of where they would be sent?
the state lab.
State lab. All right. Thank you. No further questions.
Sir.
Thank you, Mr. Top.
this may have been one of the very few occasions that you were involved with a Blue Star application process, yet you still understood that the goal was to over-collect, correct, and not under-collect?
Right. Yes, sir.
So if there was any kind of a reaction, you made sure that was your job there, was to collect it, right?
Right.
So that it could later be determined if it was a true positive, if it was the result of interaction with blood, or from something else, correct?
Yes, sir.
And when you were there, whatever your participation was, you made sure that you were collecting anything that reacted to the application of the spray.
Right. Not every. There were some areas that were very, very, very faint. That when Detective O'Leary and I looked at it, we said that clearly was like a rust seam or something of that nature. So we didn't collect those. But anything else, yes.
And Detective O'Leary, to your knowledge, was very familiar with the application of Blue Star.
Objection, Your Honor, being on the scope. Correct.
I'll rephrase. You indicated that you had only. This was your first or maybe second time,
Yes, sir.
and that was part of the reason why you were there, right?
Yes, sir.
Was to learn from somebody who did know about the application of Blue Star.
Correct.
Nothing further.
Nothing additional, Your Honor. We'd ask this witness to be excused, please.
Any objection?
No objection.
All right, you may step down. You are excused.